Welcome to TONKOCAST. Today's guest is Jake Parker. It's October, and famous Inktober. Jake Parker started Inktober over 10 years ago, and it has become this worldwide, incredible, big phenomena. And it's hundreds of thousands of artists are participating, and it's an incredible story that he can share. But also, Jake and I worked together over 10 years ago back in New York. We've been pals, and it was good to catch up with him. Jake, so great to have you here. This is October 2019. This is such a signature month has become for sure that Inktober is this big artist community phenomena that you started over 10 years ago.
Right.
So we thought it'd be really fun to talk to you now. And also you and I worked together a long time ago back at the Blue Sky Studios. A lot of stuff that I want to ask you. But then again, thank you so much for coming on TONKOCAST. If you don't mind talking a little bit about what you've been doing and how your career has been, just in the brief paragraphs.
Yeah. So like you said, we worked together at Blue Sky. That's where we met. We worked on Horton together. That Blue Sky was like a good turning point in my career, because up to that point I had done, I'd worked for a lot of smaller studios, and Blue Sky was like the first big studio that I'd worked for. And I like a big 3D animation studio. I'd worked for Fox Animation. That was my first job in 2000 or in 1998, and we worked on Titan AE. They had just finished Anastasia, and so, but I was really like a low level employee there. I was doing animation assistant stuff, like in betweening things like that. But it got me like understanding this world of entertainment, and it completely changed my perspective that this was a career path and this was an opportunity, because I had never known anybody that worked in the entertainment industry. I lived in Arizona, where there was no entertainment industry really there, and Fox decided to open a studio in Phoenix, and I took the opportunity to send over my portfolio. I was just this young kid, 21, I think, and they hired me, and that just set me on this career path of working in animation and some television animation, some video game stuff. I made like cut scenes for some video games. I worked at Real Effects in Dallas for a few years, working on commercials and like storyboard animation and stuff, just all that kind of stuff. And then I got a job at Blue Sky, and that took me to the East Coast, where I wanted to get into publishing as well. So like Blue Sky was this anchor for me to hone my craft and to work with amazing artists like yourself, and just like surround myself with some of the best artists in the industry, but at the same time also work on my publishing, and meet the editors down in New York City and work with my agent and kind of go that route as well. So what happened there after Blue Sky was I decided to split off and make my own career, half in publishing, half in like personal projects and personal like business ventures related to art. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years now. I was just working as an independent artist out of my home studio, and doing teaching some online courses, doing children's books and comic books, and selling like stuff in my shop, basically. And in the meantime, in between all of that, I started a thing called Inktober. That's my career in a nutshell.
That's incredible. I definitely want to secure some time to talk about Inktober in particular. But then before we get into that, it's really inspiring to hear. And I think a lot of people who are in the community that follow Tonko House, I think they're mostly very interested in indie career, and people who want to do what they want to do like their way, not necessarily relying on sort of like a big studio mentality. And in a way, it must be so inspiring for all of us to hear how your career has turned into after Blue Sky, because you had this big studio job and then you chose to be independent with the publishing. Some of the sort of personal ventures that you talked about, I'd love to hear a little more about it, but it's really exciting because I spend a lot more time in the big studio environment, and it took me a much longer to kind of take a courage to jump the ship and started my own independent career. But I remember when we worked together back at Blue Sky years ago that you were already, I always felt like your mind was already set in the independent sort of spirit. You did the Flight Comics with Kazu and those guys, right?
Yeah.
Is that the start of your comic book career, to say, or?
Yep. Yeah. My first published comic was with Flight.
Yeah. Comics. Got it.
Technology.
Yeah. And I remember when we brought you on Blue Sky, your Robert and Sparrow, is that the title? That's actually one of the things that you showed us that really convinced us, oh my God, he is incredible. Not just someone who can draw and paint, but you clearly had the story chops. And it's sometimes forgotten for concept artists to storytelling ability is so important, right? And then you came in and you fit right in to contribute right away so fast. And but what's really amazing is that even when you're working for big movies like Horton Hears a Who at Blue Sky, that I remember that I could see that you were already thinking about the next move. Am I wrong, or were you already thinking about that back then?
That's right. And that plan to go to Blue Sky was really calculated because I had made the decision in Dallas working at Real Effects that I wanted to have an independent career, but I knew 2 or 3 things needed to happen before that. Number one, I needed to just get better at my craft, and I didn't feel like I was good enough yet. And 2, I needed to build a following and like a fan base. And 3, I needed to do some more like projects, some more personal projects, and put things out in the world. And so I figured moving to Blue Sky, moving to the East Coast, to the New York area, and getting a job at Blue Sky would kind of help those things. Number one, I could put myself right in the middle of this amazing art department. And honestly, like when I looked at the art departments at Pixar and at DreamWorks and Disney, like Blue Sky at that time had all the artists that I wanted to work with, And so I went there and immediately I was like, okay, the bar is up here. I got to try and reach there. And so every day it was like, go to everybody's cubicle and what are you working on? How'd you do that? How do you make that happen? And just kind of learn. And then at the same time, social media was sort of rising. Twitter was going, blogs were really a big thing. And so I was doing that as well. I was trying to like share my work online. And then it was the project thing. I just needed, while I worked at Blue Sky, I did 2 graphic novels. I did 2 or 3 short stories for like Out of Picture, the project that you were heading up, and for Flight as well. And so I was always like putting out these projects into the world too. And I guess the income from the studio job allowed me to have the freedom to do these side projects. And it all contributed to eventually making that decision in 2010 to leave Blue Sky and make a go for it. And I should say, making a go for it as an independent artist didn't work out for a few years. It was really rough. I had to take day job to kind of cover the bills, to pay the bills. I was working for a university, and that didn't work out because I thought the extra time that I would have, I only had to teach Tuesdays and Thursdays, and all this extra time would help me. But again, I didn't have quite the foundation that I was hoping to have. And so there was some rough years there, but eventually, you stick to it, you persevere, and you kind of push through that dip. Things tend to work out.
That's incredible. Perseverance. It's such a key word for all of us who are trying to make it in the indie world. I'm so itching to hear about the Inktober, but before we get into that, one more thing I want to ask you, what's the personal venture that you're talking about? I know you are a published author, illustrator, but then you have an online school, I believe.
Yeah.
Would you mind just sharing some of the personal ventures that you started? Yeah.
So So SVSLearn.com is basically an online school that teaches specifically illustration for children's books. You could take some courses there that apply to concept art or to comics and things like that. But the three people that founded it, me, Will Terry, and Lee White, are all children's book illustrators. And we've all taught at the university, like at different universities. And we realized that art schools that we had taught at and that other students were going to weren't servicing their studio or their students in a way to teach like illustration, specifically like children's book type of stuff, right? And so we thought, well, let's start. We did one class, how to illustrate children's books, and that immediately sold out. And we sold, a ton of recorded versions of it as well. And we're like, okay, there's a demand here. Let's keep making classes for these people. And so now we've got, hundreds and hundreds of hours of material. I think over 100 classes that you could make. As specific as how to do composition or how do you do the business side. We have a class on that.
Wow, that's great.
How do you build your portfolio? And we're always like working on adding new classes and refining things and taking old classes and making them better. So that was what was nice about that was you don't have to grade papers. You don't have to give any student a grade. You could just present the material in the way that's easiest for you to teach and for the student to learn. And so what that did was the income from that gave me like this financial base that I could rely on to work on these other projects. Because in publishing, you get an advance, and then you don't get any money until that book starts making royalties.
Right.
So it's a lot of feast or famine. You've got all this money, and if you don't spend it right, it's gone in 2 months or whatever, right? And so what I was trying to do was find ways that I could sources of income that I could just sort of count on month to month, so that I could pay the bills and have a little bit more creative freedom. So that's what happened there with SVSLearn. It's still going strong, and we've grown our team now to 6 or 7 people.
To teach?
Not teachers. This is like
admin,
production manager.
Got it. That's cool.
Media specialist. We have a marketing person, like all that stuff. We got a person that answers emails. Like that's their whole job is just answer emails. So that's working out, and that freed me up to do all this other stuff that I'm trying to do.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, you are always so down to earth with such a strong vision since I met you years ago. But it's really incredible to see how that you have pursued and actually kind of doing it to make a living and be successful. Very inspiring. I think it might be good time to hear about Inktober. So this Inktober, I remember when you started it, but I just did not expect it to be such a worldwide, gigantic phenomena. Where did it all start, this whole Inktober thing?
Okay. So it all started with Willie Real.
Oh, yeah. Mutual friend, yeah.
Yeah. So Willie was working in the studio, and he had these really cool Japanese brush pens that he brought back over from Japan. He went on a trip there one summer, and he was drawing with them. And Willie's inking style is like, it's just really flow. There's a lot of flow. You could see the artist's hand in it. Yeah. And I was like, dude, let me try that pen. And so I went back to my desk in the sketchbook and I started drawing with it. And I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I want to get better at this. I want to get really good at this. And at that same time too, like a lot of people, I think in the studio were doing PX90, like the health challenge. Like it's like 90 days of like exercising.
Right? That's a silly Blue Sky art department thing that, I remember Vince and Bob and those guys are like, yeah.
They're all doing PX90 and they're talking about like, every day we got to do this, this, and this. What if I did like a health challenge, but with art? And so there are 2 reasons really for this. One was get better at inking. But number 2 was I needed something to I needed a gimmick to like get eyes on my work.
Mm.
you know?
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, I'll just start a challenge called Inktober, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
announce it like it's something that's been happening,
Oh,
and,
interesting.
and I'm just going to do it this year.
Yeah.
And so on my blog, I wrote, today's the first day of Inktober. Here's what it is in case you haven't ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm going to do is do a drawing every day in ink, no digital, just drawing in ink. And that first year I did it and I stuck to it, and I shared the pens I was using, and I shared inspiration of artists
Mm-hmm.
that I really liked. And there's a popular blog called Drawn.
I remember that. Yeah.
And they posted about it. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you should check out what Jake Parker's doing. And they had a huge following. I think
Yeah.
50,000 people were following that blog or something. And so
Mm-hmm.
I got all these eyes on my little blog,
Mm-hmm.
and it went really well. Nobody else did it with me, really. It was just me doing it. And I just kept doing it every year. Like the next October, I was like, hey, I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again. And every year a handful of people would be like, okay, I'll do it with you. And
Mm.
what really made it like grow big was social media.
Yes.
When people were able to, I remember early on in Instagram, it was all like travel photos and food. Still a lot of that, but
Mm-hmm.
I was started using Instagram showing my sketches and my
Mm-hmm.
drawings. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, immediately I realized the potential of this platform for people to follow artwork,
Mm-hmm.
not what you're eating, not where you're going, but what you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started growing a following on Instagram. And then when I brought Inktober to it, I said, hey, I'm doing Inktober. There was a time when people didn't know what hashtags were.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, if you're going to do Inktober, use the Inktober hashtag so you could see other people who are using Inktober.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this perfect timing of everyone's getting on Instagram to look at art. They're understanding how hashtags work.
Mm-hmm.
They're using it. And it was a way to just this idea to spread. And so now everyone's seeing, oh, this person did Inktober, I'm going to follow them. This person's doing Inktober, I'm going to follow them. And then the next year, people would say, I remember following these people. Now I'm going to try it.
Mm.
They start posting their own drawings,
Right.
and their followers see it, and they think, okay, next year I'm going to try it. And it just snowballed.
I had to ask, and I'm sure a lot of people might have asked you, but why October?
It's because Willie showed me his pen in September.
I see. Got it. No, but that tells you, right? That tells you a story that you took action right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you saw Willie's pen in September, and October you are already on it. That's incredible. And when do you think Inktober became a thing? How many years of you doing it, you think?
Probably 5 years,
Oh,
or 6
really?
years,
Yeah.
where it was, I could count the people that were participating with me. It was maybe 50 or 100 people that were doing it as well. I think 2015 is when I was like, whoa, there's a lot of people doing it this year.
Yeah, sure.
And then yesterday, in 2019, the first day, there was 300,000 posts.
Oh my God. On the first day. That's incredible. Holy cow. Yeah, this is incredibly inspiring because I feel like today it's more than ever that it's important to build a community and stick together with the same aspirations and dreams and, a spirit than before because it's, industry is changing. The world is allowing, because of the internet and social media, that is allowing us to connect, regardless of where you are. And you don't necessarily have to work for a big studio to meet great artists, like you did when you came to Blue Sky. Maybe if it happens today, you may not have to, go work at a studio like Blue Sky to meet all these incredible artists that you wanted to work with.
Right.
And I think what you're doing with Inktober is something that we at Tonko House we care greatly about ourselves, because it's not about just the business. It's not just about selling yourself, but it's really about kind of connecting with the community and helping each other. You mentioned in some of the interviews where it's about growth, right? Inktober is about growth. It's not about competition, and it's not about you have to stick to the rule, and if you break the rule, you're not, it's not about that. But you're basically providing a sandbox for people to have some sort of a guideline or the inspiration or something. The point is that people do it every day using this limited medium and share, right? It's such a simple idea, but then you are the only one who actually made it to this big, because you did it for 11 years now. This is
Right.
your 11th year. It's hard to do. Actually, that's one of the hardest things for a lot of people. If you don't see the result right away, you give up. And it's such a natural thing for all of us. You get discouraged, but
Right.
I gotta say, honestly, I'm such a color paint person. The ink is not my strong suit, but then I'm doing that this year. I'm not. The problem with me is I don't post every day. That's the problem.
Right.
But maybe just kind of learning from you and getting inspiration from you, I should try to post from today. It's the second day already.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the prompt, just the daily prompt? You have that daily prompt each year. Today's is, I think, mindless, I believe. But would you explain how that works and what we are supposed to do with it?
Yeah. So for several years, there were no prompts. It was just you have a day to draw anything you want. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 years ago, people were saying to me, "Where's the Inktober prompt list? We need prompts for each day." And I was perfectly fine and happy to just go every day and come up with whatever I wanted to draw. Usually what I would do with my Inktober project was turn it into something. The first couple of years, I just did a random drawing every day. And then after a while, I was like, well, I don't want to do just a random drawing. I want to make something tangible. And so I started turning them into, like, I'm going to tell a story with my drawings. Or the last couple of years, I'm going to make a nice big print and do all the drawings on one page. But the prompt list was a reaction to the community saying, we want an official prompt list. And so 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was 2017 or 16, I can't remember. I posted the first prompt list. And the idea is, on any day that you decide to do it, there's a word there that's just to, like, jog creativity. And it's kind of cool to see what other artists do on that same day with that same word. And so it's just another aspect of community and Inktober that you can participate in or not participate in. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do with Inktober is completely fine, because I look at it as it's kind of like if you've ever run a marathon. There's some people there that are like racing to the finish line, but most of the people there are racing themselves, and they're like, I've trained, here's the big day, I'm just trying to make it to the finish line. Maybe I'll get a good time, maybe I won't. If it's their second or third marathon, I'm just going to try to beat my time last year. But really, it's about them doing something hard. And that's what Inktober is. It's not like a contest, it's a challenge. So you're not competing with anybody, you're just showing up to improve your I think there's 3 reasons you participate. You're either wanting to get better at the craft.
I see.
You're either already good at it and you want to flex, like show off a little bit, which is totally fine, Or the third one is it just escaped me. The third one is, it could be just a fun thing. You're winding down at the end of the day. You're not trying to get better. You're not trying to flex. It's just you and a piece of paper, and that's all you're worried about. So the prompts are there to help you come up with something to draw. You can use them. You could come up with your own prompt list if you want. A lot of people do that. This year, I'm doing the prompt list, but I'm doing it out of order. So it's really open to whatever you want to do, however you want to do it.
What do you mean out of order? You don't have to pick the second day on the day.
Right. So my project for this year is I'm taking my comic characters from Skyheart, which is a graphic novel I did, and I'm doing all the good guys on one side and all the bad guys on one side, and they're coming towards each other, right? And it's going to be this nice big, beautiful print when it's done. And so every day I'm doing a good guy, then a bad guy, then a good guy, then a bad guy, until it's all fleshed out. And some days the good guy that I want to do doesn't align with the prompt for that day, but aligns with the prompt for, day 29. So that's, for me, like, the Inktober should be, what do you want to accomplish by the end of the month?
Mm-hmm.
Not what does Inktober want you to accomplish?
Right.
Like, it should be the artist driven, not Inktober driven. So that's where I'm coming at it from.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think a lot of people are definitely using that as a fantastic kind of fun exercise tool for them to do one of those three that you mentioned. And just because it has gotten such a big thing, that I can see that you're very careful about how to sort of articulate what this is all about. And I think it's important for people to understand this is about what it is that you talked about today. So that's really exciting, and I would do that too. And I have to join the force. Would you mind, at the end of this interview, would you mind sharing what you're working on these days, and what's the exciting things that we can expect from you as an artist, as a storyteller, as an educator, whatever it is? I know you're doing a lot of comics and kids books, but if you don't mind, anything that you can share.
Yeah. So I guess what's on my plate right now is I'm wrapping up the Inktober handbook, which will be out next Inktober. So keep an eye out for that. And really, what I'll be doing this year with Inktober is it's very seasonal type of thing. People show up around September talking about Inktober and getting ready for it, and then they do it, and then it's over with. And I think what I'm going to try this year with Inktober is just releasing a prompt once a week for the whole year, just to keep people like sharp and fresh if they want to participate. And so every week it'll be an Inktober prompt. You can work on it that week. You do one drawing a week. Don't worry, no pressure, no stakes or anything. And then when Inktober rolls around next October, you've done drawings all year and you're kind of ready to do 31 in a row, right? So that's the Inktober project this year. And then the other thing is I'm working on Skyheart book 2. I finished book 1 last year. I'm working on book 2, and I'm doing it through Patreon. So if you want to see updates on that project as I go along, it's on Patreon. I think my Patreon is patreon.com/Jake Parker. So you can check that out. I'm sure there's something else. I have a children's book coming out this month, Little Snowplow Wishes for Snow. So if you need a children's book for your kid, you could check that out. Yeah, I think that's it for now.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And definitely, we'll have links to these projects, your school and Patreon link and stuff on our description, of course, so you can check it out. But that's really exciting, Jake. And I'm always just so impressed and inspired how you're always thinking ahead and just having such a strong vision with just never compromise what you want to do as an artist and what you want to do as a person. I hope that we can follow your path and just be inspired by what you've done and what you shared with the community. So thank you so much for sharing your story today and sharing your wisdom through all these projects. It's just really incredible for the community.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to throw a little bit of that back at you. I'm just a huge fan of everything you've been doing as well. Dam Keeper, it's just phenomenal.
Thank you.
I love it. So
good luck with your going to Comic-Con.
Yeah. So I don't know when this is going to go up on YouTube, but there's the Inktober party in New York City Saturday night, and I'll be at New York Comic-Con signing at the Blick booth. There's a free print you can get. I'll sign it. You can meet me. You can get a high five or whatever.
Awesome.
And the party's sold out, actually. I think 150 people.
Wow.
Have bought tickets, and we've got a waiting list as well, which is closed. And we'll try to figure out next year how to fit more people into it. I don't know
if they can't go to the Inktober party, but at least you can come and say hello to your booth. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.